What's up guys, Dom Trimboli here from Refinancer, and I wanted to do a video as to why right now may be the very last chance you have to buy your second property, at least for a good while. Now, as you know, if you've had a property for the last 2 years, it's never been valued higher than right now. There's a very good chance it would have gone up by 10%, 15%, or even 20%, some places even more, which is crazy. And we can all agree is unsustainable. Property should not be able to rise by that insane amount every year. As you can see with the RBA increasing rates, last month in May and again in June, crazy 50 basis points in June. The government are going to do everything to fight inflation because growing prices of household goods, cars and property is definitely included. So over the last 6 months or so, valuations have been coming up really strong. Now there's lots of great market data for valuers to use when they revalue a home. So right now the data is fantastic. A valuation over the next month or two is going to show results and data from the last 6 months. Now, in the next 6 months, we may be seeing all this increased pressure from the government and the RBA to actually lower property prices or at least stabilize them. This will also affect the way valuers perceive property. The attitude and the aroma around valuations might be a little bit lower than they are right now. So what this means, your property may be valued at, let's say, $800,000 now. It might be valued at $750,000 in 6 months. Now that's not saying that it's gone down in value, but it might just say that a valuer doesn't have the confidence it did or they did 6 months ago when valuing your property. So what this means is you may have access to another $50,000 or 5 or even 10% in your property right now than you would in 6 months. So what you could do is you could unlock that equity in your home right now, get a cash out, bring that property up to 80% or even 90%, depending on how bullish you are with your strategy. Take that equity now while your property is valued at $800,000 or the higher, and do it before the valuers will reflect a lower valuation because of market confidence. So that's the first reason why you should do it. Your valuation is highest right now. Now, the second reason is to do with borrowing capacity. If you've been keeping up to date with the news, it's widely tipped borrowing capacity will slightly reduce. A lot of lenders have an assessment rate, and that is very much influenced by the current interest rates. With rates having already gone up and continuing to go up, it's likely borrowing capacity will be reduced. If you could borrow $600,000 today, in 6 months you may be able to borrow $550,000. So right now you can borrow more than you could in 6 months, meaning your borrowing capacity is stronger. Now, once we align that with the first point, it means your equity is at its strongest point and your borrowing capacity is at its strongest point. These are things that could change in time. Now, the third reason is that properties that you're looking to buy may actually get cheaper in this window. As we've already discussed, there will be less confidence in the market. There's likely to be a big effect with interest rates going up. For a little while, all the noise around that may influence consumer confidence. So we may actually see everything shift. Right now, we're seeing supply of property very low and demand of property very, very high. With all of the shift that's happening with interest rates, we might actually see supply lift up and demand actually go down. This may result in opportunities on the market that previously aren't there. So it might be that moment where you can access the most equity to have that deposit, getting the highest borrowing capacity and buying property that is actually cheaper than what it would be 6 months ago, and maybe cheaper than what it would be in 6 months or a year after the market has recovered, because the market will recover. People generally overreact with news and they think, wow, it's crazy. And then, the news, everything influences them. But after a few months, people start to just get on with it. And ultimately people need homes, people need somewhere to live, and that will continue to fuel property over the medium to long term. Now that kind of leads me into the fourth reason, and that's our new Labor government. Whether you're for or against it, we can all agree that there will be changes in the marketplace. And the thing that the Labor government have been pretty strong on speaking about is looking after first home buyers. They've already come up with suggestions of policy where they're going to actually help people buy property and even take an interest in it. And we're going to ask ourselves, what is going to be the effect of that? So if Labor are putting in policy that will fuel the first home buyer to have more access to property, that might not necessarily affect the supply of those homes. So this could in turn increase the demand of these types of property, which could push the prices up. Now, the first home buyer property tends to also be a property that the investor would look at. We're talking at a property maybe between 400 and 600,000, depending on what state you live in. Ultimately, you could have a first home buyer buying a brand new property as their first home, or an investor buying that brand new home to take advantage of negative gearing and also getting their, things like depreciation and rental income sorted out. So these properties kind of fall in the same place, which means that if we do kind of buy now in this window before policy comes out, which fuels these types of properties, we can actually buy these properties before they're going to hit that point where demand's really high and supply is really low. So when we put everything together and we understand that right now is probably the strongest your borrowing capacity is going to be for a little while, your equity may be the strongest it's going to be for a little while as well, we can probably assume property will go down a little bit in value in the short term because of the interest rate announcements. And there's reason to believe these types of properties that you want to invest in, that the first home buyer will also want to buy, they may pick up in the medium to long term. So we could be sitting in a moment where it's possible for you to buy your next property, and it also makes sense. So consider what I've said, guys. It's a simplistic viewpoint to just think that there's no opportunity given that rates have increased. I'm sure there's probably properties that you wouldn't want to buy, or there's, you might be in a situation where it doesn't make sense to buy property right now. But for a lot of people, there's actually great opportunity to move now. So if you're interested, feel free to get in contact with us, click on our website, fill out a form, like, subscribe, and feel free to comment any videos that you want me to do in the future. We'll catch you later, guys. Bye.